Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Ottawa Senators and whether or not this season is actually going to be the season they put it all together and actually make the playoffs. So before we get started with that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So Ottawa has been a team that's been rebuilding for a while, and I think that the past 2 years things have changed a little bit in terms of, we're a team that's rebuilding versus a team that has expectations. The problem is though, results haven't necessarily followed, as they have now missed the playoffs in 7 straight seasons, and they have seen guys like Brady Tkachuk never play in a playoff game to date. That's unfortunate, and they're also looking to avoid more unfortunate circumstances where they could possibly miss out on an 8th season outside of the playoffs by trying to make some moves. And I think the biggest move here is the fact that they went out and traded to get Linus Ullmark, and Ullmark is a goalie that could theoretically solve a lot of their problems, because last year the Senators had Joonas Korpisalo, who they ended up signing to, I believe, a 4-year deal at the time. Things did not work out there, as he had a sub-900 save percentage and allowed over 3 goals a game, with his goals against average being like 3.27. Things were pretty bad, and when it rained, it poured in this sense because Korpisalo had some ugly games. Meanwhile, Ullmark had a good year after previously winning the Vezina the season prior to this, so there are a lot of high hopes and expectations placed on Ullmark as a recent Vezina winner and somebody that has been able to string together multiple good seasons. But we've kind of heard this before. Ottawa, over the past few years, especially since they've been bad, are constantly saying, this is going to be the guy we bring in to fix all of our problems. He's going to do it single-handedly and make this team suddenly a playoff team. It's not always necessarily been the case, but I do feel like there's a couple of reasons why Ullmark could be the guy, theoretically. So the first positive we could talk about is the fact that in some ways defensively the Senators were better last year. They spent less time on average on the PK, so that's going to be less taxing on your goalie as compared to a team like the Anaheim Ducks that allowed a lot of penalties or took a lot of penalties, and then also the Senators had a lower rate of shots against compared to the Boston Bruins at all strengths last year. So that could be something that is beneficial for Ullmark. Another thing is too, looking at the fact that Ullmark played in Buffalo before Boston, a lot of people have been highlighting the fact that he was good even while the team for the Sabres, I almost said for the Bruins, for the Sabres was not especially great. And I think that's where you're seeing a team like Ottawa saying, well, he played well for a team that was probably worse than us than what we are right now. So if he comes in and plays as well as he did for Buffalo, but we are better than them, then we probably could be a team that is a fringe playoff side or even better. And I do think one thing that you're looking at here is over the past 5 years, Ullmark has a save percentage of .921 in that time, with 2 different teams playing really, really well. So you're kind of banking on what you've seen over the last half decade, if you will, compared to him just falling off of a cliff this year. Even though, again, I think there are real concerns seeing how some other guys were brought in and then just had atrocious runs. And they also made some other moves. They signed David Perron to a deal, and he's going to be somebody that is going to provide veteran depth, forward depth especially, and hopefully can contribute offensively, as the Senators need to go out there and score more goals. I think one person in particular we're going to be watching out for is Tim Stützle, as he had a 39-goal season and then followed it up with this past season having 18 goals. They have some players that you know can be tremendous goal scorers. I think Brady Tkachuk had 37 goals this year. So if you have him and Stützle leading the way, that could be very beneficial for the team. And if I'm not mistaken, they only had 3 or 4 players that ended up having 20 goals or more on the year. So yeah, kind of highlighting the fact that if they don't end up having things work out and Stützle has another down year, maybe they could be in a spot where, again, they're struggling to score goals. Their power play percentage was 23rd, I believe, in the league last season. All things that are valid concerns, because if Ullmark struggles and they are again struggling to score goals, they're going to be right back where they were before. Now, maybe, just maybe, a coaching change will fix some of this, if not all of this. But you have Travis Green that is going to be the head coach. And this move doesn't necessarily fill me with a lot of confidence, mainly because he was with the Canucks before this. And yes, while they were the baby Canucks and they still had a lot of time to grow and they needed to get a sense of what it was like in the NHL, they did better under Bruce Boudreau and then Rick Tocchet especially. So I'm not going to say necessarily that Green's just going to be the person that fixes every single problem in Ottawa that we've seen to date. While I don't want to harp on him too much, I will say this. I don't expect him to be a Jack Adams contender, if you catch my drift. Are there other coaches out there that you'd say, oh, well, we really hired him? Maybe, but I do know with Green, he's getting another opportunity, and hopefully this time around things go better for him. Now, the thing is, I feel like we're kind of stuck in the twilight zone here. We've talked about it before. In the Atlantic, there are like 3 or 4 teams where you keep saying, this year, if they get better, things are going to go well. Or this year, we expect them to be better, and they should have a season that goes better for them, and that kind of revolves around teams like Buffalo, Detroit, Ottawa, maybe Montreal, although I think their timeline is a little bit skewed. But looking especially at a team like the Detroit Red Wings and the Ottawa Senators, they feel very similar, as they have started to give some of their younger players bigger contracts and need to see some results. Buffalo, I think, is kind of getting closer and closer to being exactly in that same boat, as they're starting to give players money, but they are a little bit more defendable because I think they had the youngest NHL roster by average age last season, whereas Detroit and Ottawa have all of these guys that are playing and have got plenty of NHL experience to this point, but aren't seeing results. The big difference is, though, the Red Wings feel a lot closer to make the playoffs compared to a team like Ottawa, as they finished 13 points higher in the standing compared to the Senators, and are a team that has cracked, I believe, 80 points in back-to-back seasons. The Senators have only cracked the 80-point mark once, which was not this season, but the season prior, before regressing yet again. And that's kind of where I'm a little bit concerned, because you have a forward group that you should have realistically high expectations for, as some of these players are getting paid handsomely, and then the blue line as well has got some guys that are being paid very, very well and should be going out there and stepping up and performing. And then you're getting Ullmark, who I'm not going to go out there and say he's going to win the Vezina by any means, but if you are trading for a guy that won the Vezina and you say, yes, we feel like he's going to be a true difference maker for them, they need to have relatively lofty expectations for them. But I don't really know right now. I kind of feel like when I'm looking at this, I don't feel like Ottawa is a true lock, or even is comfortably close right now to making the playoffs. Maybe things go better for them, but I will say this: Jay Fresh, who is very smart, much smarter than I am, has his models that he ends up releasing every year. This was the early model. He's going to put out another one, I believe, closer to the season. Actually has Ottawa right now in a spot where they would be the second wildcard team, the last team to get in out east, I believe, at 94 points. So if they had a 94-point year and made it to the playoffs, I do think this would kind of alleviate some of the concerns that the fan base has, as they have been stuck for a minute. And I do think that truly ownership probably cares more about being competitive than what we saw when Melnyk owned the team. And that hopefully is going to lead to a difference, because Ottawa deserves a good team. They had some good teams at points before in franchise history, but now it's been so long that you're getting close to 10 years without a playoff appearance. And some of these guys, they're not exactly 18 anymore. And I know I was going to try to stick to being positive here, but I do feel like even if Ottawa was able to go out there and make the playoffs, they probably would be headed for an early exit. If they made it to the second round, I think I'd be shocked. I would worry a little bit about if they fail to make it again. If they go out there this season and don't even crack 80 points, that's when you start to have to ask some really hard questions about what are we doing wrong, how do we make this team better, and what can we do going forward to decide which route we're going to go as a franchise. Because doing the same thing over and over again and not even being close to the postseason is a true and serious problem. And if they are below 80 points, yeah, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Ottawa fans should be angry. I think that the team is hoping that you're going to mindlessly chant "Go Sens Go" forever and ever, but it would be understandable how the fans could just get fed up with what they're seeing, as in recent years, you want better, and you're not necessarily getting a whole lot better. Anyway, let me know your thoughts for the Ottawa Senators down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe, have a great night, and you love hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.